Charlie, let's start with the most important question. Did you cause the death of Professor Dan Markel?
Absolutely no.
Did you hire anyone to kill him?
No.
Did you put any letters in any diaper bags of Katie Magbanua to have Professor Markel killed?
No.
Before we get there, let's spend some time on your background. How old are you?
I'm 47 years old.
Where were you raised?
I was raised in Coral Springs, Florida.
When were you arrested in this case?
I was arrested April 21st, 2022.
And by the way, how do you feel right now?
I'm really nervous.
Why are you nervous?
My whole life depends on it.
Where have you been living since you were arrested a year and a half ago?
Leon County Jail.
Growing up, what was your family like?
It was pretty normal. I was in the middle of 3 children. My dad was a dentist. My mom was a school teacher. Played a lot of sports. Pretty normal upbringing.
Do you have a brother and a sister?
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
How close were you with your siblings growing up?
My brother I wasn't real close with. My sister I wasn't really that close with either, probably until I got into high school. And then we were probably closer in age and had more in common. And then I got closer to her as the years went on.
Your family growing up, how would you describe it financially?
I'd say it was upper middle class. And then in 92, my dad lost a lot of money. And then wasn't upper middle class after that. And then my dad worked hard, and he worked until he was 78. He retired.
What if I told you that solving a murder sometimes requires creating a crisis to see how the suspects react? What if I told you that the FBI sent an undercover agent to blackmail the mother of a murder suspect just to see who she would call first? What if I told you that conversation, and every conversation after it, was being recorded by law enforcement, and that those recordings would reveal a family speaking in code words, discussing escape plans, and accidentally confessing to a conspiracy they thought was hidden? What if I told you it took nearly a decade to arrest the person prosecutors believed masterminded this entire plot, and when they finally did, it wasn't because of smoking gun, but because of enhanced audio technology that could finally decode what was said in a noisy restaurant 9 years earlier? This is the story of how investigators connected the Adelson family to Dan Markel's murder. This is the story of Charlie Adelson, a wealthy periodontist who allegedly turned his family's money into a contract on his sister's ex-husband's life. And this is the story of how one undercover operation, one recording, and years of persistent investigation finally brought down a conspiracy that almost succeeded. If you haven't watched episodes 1 and 2, stop right now and go watch them. This is episode 3 of a complex investigation, and you need to understand who Dan Markel was, how he was murdered, and who pulled the trigger before you can understand what we're about to reveal. Episode 1 covers Dan's murder. Episode 2 exposes the hitmen and the middlewoman. Go watch those first. This episode will still be here when you get back. For those who've been following along, Dan Markel was executed in his garage in 2014. Luis Rivera and Sigfrido Garcia were the shooters. Katherine Magbanua was the middlewoman who connected them to the money. All 3 are now in prison. But the biggest question remained: who hired Katherine? Who provided the money? Who wanted Dan dead? The answer would lead investigators to one of the most privileged families in South Florida. And proving it would require the FBI, undercover operations, years of wiretaps, and a level of patience most people can't imagine. If you want to understand how the FBI investigates complex murder-for-hire conspiracies, if you want to hear the actual wiretaps that exposed a family's darkest secrets, and if you want to see how patient, methodical detective work can crack even the most carefully planned crimes, then you need to subscribe to Dark Trail Files immediately. We have exclusive court footage, We have testimony from family members forced to testify against each other. We have recordings that were so crucial, they were enhanced by audio experts just to make sure every word could be heard. This isn't speculation. This is evidence. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and prepare to see how an entire family's world collapsed. Let's go. By 2015, investigators had identified the shooters, Luis Rivera and Sigfrido Garcia. They knew about Katherine Magbanua's connection to Garcia. But connecting Katherine to the Adelson family required following the money, and money leaves traces. Detectives subpoenaed Katherine's financial records. They examined her bank accounts, her employment history, her income sources. Katherine wasn't wealthy. She was a single mother working various jobs, struggling to make ends meet like millions of other Americans. Her financial situation was unremarkable, except for one glaring anomaly. Around the time of Dan Markel's murder, Katherine suddenly started receiving payments from an unusual source, the Adelson Institute, the family's dental practice where Charlie worked as a periodontist. Katherine Magbanua wasn't a dental professional. She had no training in dentistry. She had no apparent skills that would make her valuable to a periodontal practice. Yet she was on the payroll, receiving regular checks that prosecutors would later argue were actually payment for her role in facilitating the murder. But the payments didn't stop there. Investigators found evidence of large cash transfers. Witnesses would later testify that Katherine received money that appeared old, damp, even moldy, as if it had been hidden for years and then literally washed before being handed over. The story that emerged was bizarre. Donna Adelson, Charlie's mother, had allegedly kept cash hidden away, and when it was time to pay for the hit, that money had to be cleaned before it could be used. More than $100,000, some sources estimated, flowed through this network. Some to Katherine, some from Katherine to Garcia and Rivera. All of it carefully timed around Dan Markel's murder. But proving that these payments were connected to the murder conspiracy required more than just showing money changed hands. Prosecutors needed context. They needed communication records. They needed conversations. They needed wiretaps. On April 19, 2016, nearly 2 years after Dan Markel's murder, the FBI executed one of the most audacious undercover operations in this entire case. They called it the bump. By this point, investigators knew who was involved. They had identified Rivera, Garcia, Magbanua, and Charlie Adelson as key players in the conspiracy. But they didn't have enough evidence to make arrests stick. They needed these people to talk. They needed them to communicate about the murder. They needed them to incriminate themselves. So the FBI created a crisis. An undercover FBI agent, posing as a friend of Luis Rivera's brother, approached Donna Adelson in a public place in South Florida. The agent handed Donna a flyer about Dan Markel's murder and told her that Rivera's family needed money, specifically $5,000. The implication was clear. Rivera was in trouble, and if he didn't get help, he might start cooperating with law enforcement. This was bait, a carefully designed trap, and Donna bit. Within minutes of that encounter, Donna called Charlie. That phone call was intercepted and recorded. In it, Donna sounded panicked, worried, stressed. She told Charlie about the encounter, about the man asking for money, about the flyer. The next day, April 20th, 2016, Charlie Adelson met with Katherine Magbanua at Dolce Vita, an Italian restaurant in South Florida. They sat down. They talked. And the entire conversation was recorded by the FBI. But there was a problem. The restaurant was noisy. The recording quality was poor. You could hear voices, but the words were muffled, unclear, difficult to understand. For years, prosecutors had this recording, and they knew it was important, but they couldn't use it in court because they couldn't definitively prove what was being said. So they waited. They enhanced the audio. They brought in forensic audio experts. They used advanced technology to filter out background noise, amplify voices, clarify words. And finally, in 2022, nearly 7 years after that conversation happened, prosecutors were confident enough in the enhanced audio to use it as evidence. What that recording revealed would become the cornerstone of the case against Charlie Adelson. In that Dolce Vita conversation, Charlie and Katherine discussed the bump. They talked about what it meant. They used phrases that sounded innocent on the surface, but carried darker implications. And when prosecutors played that enhanced recording in court, it would become the evidence that connected Charlie directly to the murder conspiracy. But before Charlie could be arrested, prosecutors had to wait for the right moment, the right leverage, the right opportunity. Throughout this investigation, one person remained on the periphery, never charged but constantly mentioned. Wendi Adelson, Dan's ex-wife and Charlie's sister. Wendy's relationship with Dan was, to put it mildly, toxic by the end. The divorce was bitter. The custody battle was brutal. And prosecutors would present evidence showing just how much contempt the Adelson family had for Dan Markel. This is Wendy being questioned in court about something shocking. Whether she referred to her ex-husband, the father of her children, using a deeply insulting term.
Did you refer to him as an STD?
I don't remember saying that.
Tab 5.
It looks like I made that analogy.
Danny is an STD. One wrong mistake marrying him, and this will never go away. Is that what you said?
I did.
And did you share that kind of sentiment with your mother?
I don't remember ever saying that, so I don't think it's something I said very often.
And this was said in an email on February 26th of 2013, correct?
It was.
Approximately 17 months before the murder?
Yes, I don't think it was an email, though. It looks like it was sort of an iMessage.
Okay. Did you ever refer to your ex-husband as the Dark Lord?
I don't remember saying that, but I certainly might have.
Did you refer to your ex-husband as Gibbers?
I did.
What is the meaning of Gibbers?
Gibbers was just a silly name that a friend helped me come up with to basically make him feel less scary. It was nonsense.
Did it reference Jew in boots?
That I don't remember.
It wasn't a friendly name, right?
It was a silly name.
Did you ever say that you hated Dan Markel?
I don't remember saying it, but I certainly could have.
Tab 31, please, to refresh your memory.
I said that I hate him in this moment.
Okay, and did you say in that email, that same email, quote, I hate my children's dad?
I did.
And do you agree that email was sent approximately 15 months before Mr. Markel was murdered?
It was in April of 2013.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That level of animosity, that degree of contempt, helped prosecutors establish a motive. The Adelson family didn't just dislike Dan Markel. They despised him. They blamed him for keeping Wendy trapped in Tallahassee, away from her family, unable to live the life they believed she deserved. But animosity isn't evidence of murder. Wendy has never been charged in connection with Dan's death. Her attorneys have consistently maintained her innocence. Yet her name appears throughout the investigation, woven into testimony, mentioned in wiretaps, present in emails and conversations that prosecutors argued showed a family-wide desire to eliminate Dan. Wendi Adelson is an attorney, just like Dan was. She's educated, intelligent, and according to many observers, extremely careful about what she says and doesn't say. In court, even the way prosecutors and judges addressed her revealed the complexity of her position in this case. Watch this moment where her intelligence and awareness become a point of discussion.
Now I want to talk about your knowledge and your belief on this. You're a smart person, right?
How am I supposed to answer that?
Well, let's go through your resume. You went to Brandeis University, right?
I did.
You graduated magna cum laude.
I did.
If you could explain to the jury what that means.
It means I studied a lot and got good grades.
All right. It means, and to speak, I'm from the Northeast. My Boston accent may give it away. It means you're wicked smart, right?
That's very
You had a
nice
high
to you.
GPA, a very high GPA.
I work hard.
You also went and you got a master's degree from the University of Cambridge.
I did.
You were a Gates Scholar.
I was.
You then go to the University of Miami School of Law, which is a top-tier law school, Tier 1, right?
Okay.
Right? We're talking about your level of intelligence. You went to the University of Miami Law School, right?
I did, yes.
You also clerked at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, right?
I did.
Now, to get a clerkship out of law school, it's a very difficult thing to do, right?
It's challenging.
You have to have top grades. You have to go through a rigorous selection process, right?
Yes.
You then become a professor at the Florida State University College of Law, right?
Yes.
You're also a published author, right?
Now you're just embarrassing me.
This case everywhere. You'd agree with me on that, right?
I've been advised by my lawyer not to read it.
All right. Now, we're not talking about reading stuff. There's podcasts,
Also not to listen.
TV shows,
Also not to watch.
articles.
Don't read.
And so you've made the decision. Now, you're a lawyer yourself too, right?
I am.
And you made the decision, I'm not going to look at any of this stuff.
Correct.
I don't want to know what happened to the father of my 2 children.
Not I don't want to know what happened.
How can you say you love those boys if you don't care who killed the father that they loved?
You also have a separate obligation as an attorney to tell the truth, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Don't believe that I did.
You did not.
I don't remember doing that, no.
No further questions.
I don't remember exactly the timeline of that.
Okay, thank you. Lawyers, yeah.
I honestly don't remember.
That acknowledgement, that recognition of Wendy's intelligence, raised questions for some observers. If she was smart enough to navigate complex legal situations, was she smart enough to maintain plausible deniability about her family's actions? Did she know what her family was planning? Did she participate in discussions about how to handle the Dan problem? Prosecutors presented evidence suggesting Wendy might have known more than she admitted. Testimony from her former boyfriend revealed that Wendy had once mentioned her brother Charlie looking into hiring a hitman, though she framed it as a joke, something not serious. But jokes about hiring hitmen take on a different meaning when someone actually gets executed. Defense attorneys representing the Adelsons faced a difficult task. How do you defend your client without throwing other family members under the bus? This attorney's approach was direct and aggressive. Watch as he attacks Wendy's credibility, attempting to shift suspicion away from his client and toward other family members.
Adelson.
Said you don't look at any of that stuff.
I
Now I
don't
ask you a
look at
question.
it.
Let me finish.
Sure.
5 minutes ago, you say you don't look at any of that stuff. Now I ask you a question, you say you look at stuff.
That's not actually what I said. I said I'm aware that it exists, but I don't read it. I don't listen to it.
Then how do you know that they're bashing you?
You just told me they are.
Wendy, no, he didn't.
I did?
Yeah.
Don't care about the father that they love. What
I
happened?
never said that I don't care about the father that they
Then
love.
look at some of the discovery and help figure it out.
Excuse me?
Then look at some of the evidence and help figure it out so that more lives aren't ruined by this.
I seem to not understand.
You need to.
Christopher, be careful. I think she's gonna plot against you too. That was Chris DeCoste. That's what I call a creature of the courtroom. He's one of the best. I know a good attorney when I see one. He's good. He's real good. He's the only one that really made her sweat. He's a Boston guy. Of course. Go Sox. Side note, I'd love to see him on the Karen Reed team. You know she's innocent. We need you. Back to Miss Wendy. News to me. She has a deposition coming up on Friday. I have a feeling she's going to be pleading the old fifth. How is she still walking around free?
That courtroom moment highlighted the fractures forming within the Adelson family. As prosecutions moved forward, as evidence mounted, as family members were called to testify, the united front began to crack. Protecting one member meant potentially sacrificing another. And in a family allegedly built on loyalty and mutual protection, that created impossible choices. Rob Adelson, another of Donna's children, found himself in an impossible position, called to testify in the trial of his own brother Charlie and later his mother Donna. Rob wasn't accused of involvement in a murder plot, but his testimony would provide crucial insight into family dynamics, conversations, and the Adelson family's collective attitude toward Dan Markel. This is Rob Adelson on the witness stand, forced to choose between protecting his family and telling the truth.
Thank you. Could you tell us your name and spell your name for our court reporter, please?
Sure. Robert Todd Adelson, Adelson.
Thank you. And what state do you currently live in?
New York.
And how long have you lived in New York?
13 years.
Okay, so since maybe 2012?
Yes.
All right. What do you do for a living in New York?
I'm an ENT.
Okay, so ear, nose, and throat doctor?
Yes.
And how long have you worked as an ENT?
For 20 years.
How do you know the defendant in this case, Donna Adelson?
She's my mother.
And Harvey Adelson's your dad?
Yes.
Wendy and Charlie Adelson are your siblings?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
In Coral Springs, Florida.
Is that a bit north of Miami?
Yep.
About how long of a drive?
About an hour north of Miami.
Okay. When y'all were growing up, did you all, the five of you, live in the same house as a family?
Yes.
And who's the oldest child?
I am.
Okay. Who's the middle child?
Charlie.
How many years between you and Charlie?
3 years between Charlie and I.
And then who's the youngest then is Wendy?
Yes.
And how many years between Charlie and Wendy?
3 years.
Okay. When you were 18, did you move out of the Coral Springs house?
Yes, when I went to college.
Okay. And did you go to college at University of Florida?
I went to Tulane.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Did you live in Gainesville at some point?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. So after you went to college at Tulane and then went on to med school, went on to residency, throughout those years, did you continue to talk to your parents and your siblings on a regular basis?
Yes.
And would you see them a couple of times a year?
Yes.
When you were in school, would you go home for the summer?
Yes.
Based on your personal observations throughout your life of your parents and of your siblings, who is the leader in the family? Who tends to run the show?
I think my mom.
Okay, so Donna Adelson?
Yes.
Would you describe Donna Adelson's personality as being more controlling or more laid back?
I think more on the controlling side.
What about, is she kind of a more assertive person or a more passive person?
A more assertive.
What about your dad, Harvey Adelson? What's his personality like?
I think he's more passive, more go with the flow.
Okay. So they're kind of opposites in that way a bit?
Yeah.
When you and your siblings were growing up, was Donna Adelson a very involved parent?
Yes.
And when I say involved, as far as with your life and with your friends and with school and with that type of thing?
Absolutely.
Did she have certain fixed ideas throughout your life of certain things she wanted to happen in you and your siblings' life?
Yes, absolutely.
Was it acceptable if you decided to not do those certain things that she was fixated she wanted you to do? Was that acceptable to her or no?
No. I think she had certain sort of rigid, fixed ideas or impressions for what she wanted for us, and if you went along with that, things were fine. If you didn't, things were not fine.
Did she have strong opinions about who you all married and what you all did for a living and those types of things?
Yes.
And you're obviously a doctor. Was that an acceptable profession to her?
Yeah, that was okay.
Okay. And was that one of the reasons you became a doctor?
Yes.
Okay. How involved was Donna in yours, Charlie, and Wendi Adelson's life after you grew up became adults, and had kids of your own?
I think still involved.
Was she more involved with your life, Charlie's life, or Wendy's life, would you say?
Probably more involved with Wendy and probably to a lesser degree with Charlie.
Okay. And then would you be the least, she's the least involved with your life out of the three?
Yeah, probably because I was older, but sure, I agree.
Okay, so you're the oldest child. You're out of the house before the other two?
Yep.
Okay, and then you also lived other places after you went to college throughout the rest of your life?
Yes.
Now, was this like a healthy level of involvement that she had with the three of your lives, or was it more of like a micromanaging as you saw it?
I think it was certainly between over-involved and controlling. It probably lended itself more toward controlling, but there's in various realms, more or less. But I think certainly that was the tension.
Okay, so a little more on the controlling side.
Yes.
And does that include your personal lives as far as your relationships and in your professions, your jobs?
Yes.
Was it Charlie who always needed more attention than the other two children?
I think so, yes.
When did Wendy's life start becoming one that she needed to pay or give more attention to?
I think when she had some troubles in her marriage, I wasn't aware there were any troubles in her marriage until Wendy left. But I think around that time when she had two young children, I think that was when she became more involved. And I was, at that point living, a pretty good distance away.
Okay. Were you living in Philadelphia at the time?
Yeah, but first in Philly and then in New York where we live now.
Okay. And so Charlie always got a lot of attention, and then Donna also started giving her attention also to Wendy's life once Wendy starts going through the separation or divorce.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. From your interactions with Donna Adelson through your whole life growing up and even as an adult, would you describe her as someone who's mentally sharp, thinking about things from all angles, or is she someone who's a little more gullible? Yes, sir.
Objection is sustained. You may continue with your examination.
Were Charlie and Donna Adelson dependent on each other or pretty independent from each other?
I would say Charlie was probably somewhat dependent on my mom to help him out with organizing stuff, his dental practice. I think he probably relied on her a lot.
Okay. And you mentioned the dental practice. When you were growing up, who owned the dental practice?
My dad.
Okay. And throughout your life, was Donna Adelson in charge of the money at Adelson Institute?
I wouldn't know the inside workings of it, but I always remember my mom signing the checks and writing the checkbook at the table, when I was back in middle school or high school. So.
Okay. So even back then, she would do some bookkeeping or payroll type things at home.
That's my memory of it.
Okay. And then, did the dental practice, you said it obviously started out at Harvey's. Do you remember a time when Charlie Adelson took over?
I remember my dad making a joke about him having a very understanding boss because Charlie was now his boss. So.
Do not testify to what others have stated out of court. You may testify as to your knowledge, but not what someone else specifically said. The objection is sustained. You may continue.
I understand you were telling us how you remember that, but can you just tell us around what year do you remember that happening?
Around 2012, Charlie purchased the practice.
Okay, and then was there a time that you remember Charlie somehow selling it back to Harvey Adelson as then becoming the head of the practice again?
I will permit you to answer the question if you have knowledge of this matter.
My memory of that was sometime in fall to winter of 2015 to 16, somewhere right around there. That's my memory.
Okay.
Rob's testimony painted a picture of a close-knit family that discussed everything together. He confirmed that the family was upset about the custody situation. He acknowledged conversations about Dan. He provided context that prosecutors used to demonstrate this wasn't just Charlie acting alone. This was, they argued, a family matter. But the most dramatic testimony wouldn't come from Rob. It would come from Wendy herself, called to testify in her own mother's trial. Imagine being forced to take the witness stand in your mother's murder trial. Imagine prosecutors asking you questions designed to implicate the woman who raised you. Imagine defense attorneys trying to shift blame onto you to save your mother. That's the position Wendi Adelson found herself in during Donna's trial. And what she said on that stand would become some of the most scrutinized testimony in this entire case. On April 21st, 2022, nearly 8 years after Dan Markel's murder, Charlie Adelson was arrested at Miami International Airport. He was boarding a flight, about to leave the country, when law enforcement took him into custody. The timing wasn't coincidental. Prosecutors have been building their case for years, waiting for the right moment. Katherine Magbanua's conviction in May 2022 was crucial, but what really triggered Charlie's arrest was the enhanced audio from the Dolce Vita restaurant meeting. That recording, finally clear enough to present in court, captured Charlie and Katherine discussing the bump operation. They talked about what to do, how to handle it, whether they needed to be worried. And, crucially, they used language that prosecutors argued was code for discussing the murder conspiracy. Charlie's trial began in October 2023. The courtroom was packed. Media attention was intense. This was the moment 9 years of investigation had been building toward, proving that a wealthy, educated, successful periodontist had orchestrated the murder of his ex-brother-in-law over a custody dispute. The prosecution's case was methodical. They presented the money trail, showing payments from Charlie to Katherine around the time of the murder. They played recordings of phone calls, including those made immediately after the bump operation. They brought in Luis Rivera again to testify about how the murder was arranged and who provided the payment. And they played that enhanced Dolce Vita recording. Charlie's defense strategy was aggressive. He testified in his own defense, something defense attorneys rarely recommend because it opens the defendant up to cross-examination. But Charlie believed he could explain everything away. He had answers for the money. He had explanations for the conversations. And when prosecutors suggested he'd been speaking in code to hide his involvement in murder, Charlie's response was fierce. Watch this moment when Charlie confronts the prosecution's theory head-on.
I was approached by another extortionist today. Does she say that?
No, she's talking very carefully.
And you say carefully, but isn't carefully the same thing as code?
No, they're two totally separate things. You know the difference?
You weren't really giving her money for a TV, were you?
Giving her money for a TV.
This TV is probably going to be about $5.
Okay.
I need you to bring cash tonight.
I wish she picked another object on planet Earth other than TV. But TV is code for absolutely nothing. There is no code in this case involving TV, and you keep circling and circling and circling TV, you're wrong.
Is it a coincidence that the repair of the TV that you bought Wendy as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman is your sister's alibi for the murder, and then your mom brings up TV first call on the wire?
It's not an alibi for a murder. She had a broken TV. You got to ask Lincoln who threw the remote at the TV.
Was it a coincidence? Is the TV thing a coincidence? That's what I hear you say.
Oh, that the repairman was there that day?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is a coincidence for sure. There's a couple of coincidences in this case.
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I said there's a couple of coincidences in this case. I mean, she had people send her an email to go buy a bottle of Bullet bourbon for their Stock the Bar party, and she was driving to a liquor store to buy a bottle of Bullet bourbon on that day, at that time, and her friend sent the email, and you have the email and evidence. Like, is that a coincidence? Yeah, coincidences happen.
And that you might not be the right Katie talk. That doesn't seem to really fit with your theory of the case, does it? What was your explanation for that? Why you kept saying you might not be the right Katie? I mean, she's definitely the right Katie, right?
Absolutely. She knew it was. I was implying it was her. I was just trying to say, I'm not setting you up, but I need your help.
On call B, your mom, you call your mom back, and you say, you probe her a little bit, and ultimately you say, you think someone's trying to blackmail you? That's crazy. Why does it sound like this is something that's new and unfathomable to you at that moment?
Well, because I wasn't even following what my mom was talking about on the first call. And on the second call, which she shocked me when she said that. And I'd been extorted before, and her saying to bring cash, everything just didn't sound right.
Could we play clip 4, please? This is from Dolce.
Sorry, from what?
Clip 4 from Dolce.
Okay.
Even if they had any evidence, the first words out of your mouth on this clip, even if they had any evidence. No. Strike. The quote is, if you say, if they had any evidence, we'd have already gone to the airport. And I know you already testified about this, but does an innocent person say, if they had any evidence?
Right. Katie's saying it's the police, and I'm saying that we're innocent. They're not going to have any evidence to show we were part of something that we were part of. If we had any part of this, we'd be going to the airport right now. And I
Isn't
still say
it
the
true,
same
doctor,
thing.
that they're not going to have any evidence because you were careful?
No, because we weren't a part of this.
You were smart.
No, we weren't a part of this.
You walled yourself off from
I was
the
sure
killers.
they're not going to have evidence to show I did something I didn't do. So we're not running to the airport.
And you're untouchable, right?
No, we didn't do a murder. I wasn't part of a murder. There's no reason to run to the airport.
In the next clip, you're discussing what's going to happen if this person that did the bump goes to the police. And you're going through all these scenarios, these possibilities.
Wait, if he goes to the police?
Yeah, the blackmailer goes to the police. They're going to say, where's the weapon? He's not going to know. He's just going to have hearsay, basically. Someone told me they did it. It's not going to be enough to get the investigation anywhere. Why are you thinking through the possibility of the blackmailer going to the cops if the blackmailer doesn't have any dirt on you to take to the cops?
I wasn't thinking about the blackmailer. What I was trying to say is I don't know anything about Sigfredo. I don't know anything about this crime. I was trying to tell her that I'm harmless. I don't have any knowledge of what went on. The last thing I wanted is that now that she's saying it's the police, is someone to come and kill me and think I'm some kind of loose end. So that's why I'm saying that.
But that's not what you're saying. You're saying if this is a person that Luis Rivera ran his mouth to and they go to the police, it's going to be worth 0 because they're not going to know anything other than, hey, my brother told me this.
I don't know if I was saying with someone who knows Luis Rivera. I was trying to make a point that I don't know anything.
And then you suggest what they would have to do is get him to wear a wire and get the person to confess, and that's probably what this could be, an effort to do, right?
Well, they're thinking that we were part of a murder, so this was the same thing I said before, is that this is their theory, so this is a police tactic, and it could be either a bad guy or the police, and this is how they're pursuing it.
Exactly. So as long as you keep your mouth shut, you can get away with murder, right?
No, not at all.
Isn't that what you told Ryan Fitzpatrick?
No, Ryan Fitzpatrick is someone who stole over $500,000 from me.
That's not my question, sir.
Sorry.
Did you say that to Ryan Fitzpatrick?
No, never. Never at all.
Why do you go into so much detail about rental car examples? Let's start with, strike that. Can you agree that the Prius, you knew that the police were looking for a Prius at the time you met at this Dolce Vita restaurant?
I think it had been released at that time.
All right, and you heard the recording. You're arguing. Let's play the clip. This is going to be clip, I think let's play 7 and 8, please. Dolce.
Because the fact is like, even if, let's say, it's just out of my car, and then I go ahead and I get in the car, and then I go, when you're dating in the car, I go, yeah, she was in my car, and he got out, and she did this horrible crime. Okay, they come and they get the DNA in the car, and they go, yep, he was in my car. Katie sat in the car for 2 minutes to get out of the AC and then got out of the car. Katie had nothing to do with you guys murdering me. Outside of that, there's no evidence. Okay? You know, if you have a car and you can link this person to renting that car that you drive, okay. But you have to prove that they were also driving that day too, and rented it and lent it to a friend. What if you rented a car and I go, hey, can I borrow for the weekend? I'll bring it back on Tuesday. You go, yeah, sure. So you rented the car. You've been in that car. I drive into fucking Orlando. I rob McDonald's in Orlando. I come back and I go, here's the keys, Katie. And you go, okay, thanks. Yeah, he rented it, but what if you were fucking out all weekend and you didn't even know I took your car? I did something and I brought it back. Okay. But my point is, I don't have any knowledge of what evidently this person is either pretending to or does. I don't want someone paying business.
Sounds like you're saying even if they track down the Prius, even if there's DNA or fingerprints in the Prius, meaning like they can link someone to the Prius, that's not going to be enough evidence to make any arrests in this case. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. What I'm doing is I'm restating.
You've answered my question.
Can I give you an
on redirect? You'll have an opportunity.
Well,
my question was.
One moment.
My question
We're not
was,
just wildly arguing, Mr. Adelson. Please answer the question.
Okay.
I can just ask you a yes or no question.
Please allow me to answer your question.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Help yourself out.
What I was saying to Katie is that the information she had just told me in the car about Sigfredo not being there when the crime was committed, she told me that Sigfredo was high on drugs at the hotel and that Luis had rented a car and that he's the one who killed Dan. And I'm restating to her that I don't have any knowledge of what went on, and that all I know is that Sigfredo wasn't even there when this happened. So that's what I'm restating to her.
That Sigfredo can't be caught even if he's connected to the crime, to the car?
I know that Sigfredo wasn't the one who killed Dan.
Okay.
Charlie's explanation was that he'd been extorted. He claimed Katherine Magbanua had come to him after the murder and told him that people he knew had been involved, and that unless he paid money, he would be implicated. He portrayed himself as a victim, someone trapped by circumstances, someone who paid money out of fear, not guilt. But the jury didn't believe him. On November 6th, 2023, after about 3 hours of deliberation, they found Charlie Adelson guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation of first-degree murder. On December 12th, 2023, Charlie was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 30 years for each of the other convictions. Charlie Adelson, the successful periodontist, the devoted brother, the man who prosecutors argued valued his sister's happiness more than his ex-brother-in-law's life, would spend the rest of his days behind bars. Charlie's conviction immediately raised the stakes for his mother, Donna. If Charlie had orchestrated the murder, had Donna been involved too? Prosecutors believed she was not just involved, but that she was the mastermind, the person who first suggested eliminating Dan as a solution to the custody problem. Just days after Charlie's conviction, law enforcement made their move. This is footage of Charlie being transported, symbolizing how his conviction was about to pull his entire family deeper into this case.
My man. Thank you so much, man.
Charlie, yes, we are across the street from the jail. I'll go as slow as I can, but you eat what you. I ain't gonna. You eat it all. I'm not gonna take you out the van until you're done. You good?
Any chance I could just take one cup off? You want fast? I'll take the fly and eat. Stand up.
Sit down. Sit down. Which hand with it?
Sit down.
Then I can take my shirt off too.
We'll get there.
It's just hot as fuck. Right. Thank you so much, man.
On the evening of November 13th, 2023, exactly 1 week after Charlie's conviction, Donna Adelson was arrested at Miami International Airport. She was attempting to board a one-way flight to Vietnam, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. She had a one-way ticket. She was leaving the country permanently, prosecutors argued, because she knew Charlie's conviction meant she was next. Donna's arrest raised the most important question of all. Was this elderly grandmother, this mother who claimed she only wanted her family close, really the person who orchestrated one of the most calculated murder-for-hire plots in recent Florida history? The evidence prosecutors would present suggested something chilling. That Donna Adelson's love for her daughter had twisted into something dark enough to justify murder. To understand the case against Donna Adelson, you have to understand what prosecutors alleged was her motive. She wanted her daughter and grandchildren back in South Florida, close to her, where she believed they belonged. Dan Markel stood in the way of that dream. The court had ruled that Wendy couldn't relocate the children. As long as Dan was alive and maintaining his parental rights, Wendy was trapped in Tallahassee. Prosecutors presented emails showing that Donna had suggested paying Dan to allow the relocation. She proposed offering him $1 million, with the money split between herself, Wendy, and Charlie. $1 million to solve the problem legally. But Dan refused. He wouldn't take money to give up his relationship with his sons. He was, by all accounts, a devoted father who wanted to be involved in his children's lives. And so, prosecutors argued, when the legal solution failed, when Dan wouldn't take money, Donna suggested another solution. A permanent one. The evidence included wiretap conversations where Donna discussed the murder investigation with Charlie. In some of these recordings, played during her trial, Donna could be heard expressing worry about the investigation, discussing what they should do, talking about contingency plans. In one particularly damning recording, made after Katherine Magbanua's conviction, Donna discussed the possibility of Charlie being arrested next. She talked about getting lawyers, about preparing, about the possibility of fleeing the country. That conversation, prosecutors argued, showed consciousness of guilt. An innocent person doesn't plan to flee the country. An innocent person doesn't discuss escape strategies. An innocent person doesn't get arrested at an airport with a one-way ticket to a country with no extradition treaty. Donna's trial began on August 22nd, 2025, more than 11 years after Dan Markel's murder. The courtroom was once again filled with media, with Dan's family and friends, with observers fascinated by how this family conspiracy had finally culminated in the matriarch herself facing justice. The prosecution's case was comprehensive. They called dozens of witnesses. They presented the same evidence used in Charlie's trial. The money trail, the wiretaps, the testimony from Luis Rivera and Katherine Magbanua about how the murder was arranged. But they also presented something more, testimony from Donna's own children. Wendy took the stand and testified about her mother's attitude toward Dan, about conversations they'd had, about the family dynamics that prosecutors argued created the environment where murder became an option. Rob testified again, providing more context about his mother's state of mind, her concerns, her conversations. And Charlie's testimony from his own trial was presented to the jury, showing how the family members' stories interconnected and, in some places, contradicted each other. Donna's defense team argued that she was innocent, that Charlie had acted on his own, that Donna had no knowledge of any murder plot. They portrayed her as an elderly woman being scapegoated by prosecutors desperate to complete their case against the family. But the wiretap recordings were devastating. In her own voice, Donna could be heard discussing the investigation, worrying about arrests, planning for worst-case scenarios. The bump operation, where she was approached by the undercover agent, showed her immediate reaction was to call Charlie, to warn him, to coordinate a response. And her attempted flight to Vietnam suggested she knew exactly what was coming. On September 4th, 2025, after 8 days of testimony and several hours of deliberation, the jury found Donna Adelson guilty on all counts. First-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation of first-degree murder. Donna Adelson, the 73-year-old matriarch who prosecutors argued orchestrated this entire conspiracy because she wanted her family close, was convicted of murder. Her sentencing hasn't happened yet as of this recording, but she faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. Looking back at this investigation, several pieces of evidence were absolutely crucial to securing convictions. First, Luis Rivera's cooperation. Without Rivera flipping and agreeing to testify, prosecutors might never have been able to connect Garcia to Katherine and Katherine to Charlie. Second, the financial records. The money trail from Charlie to Katherine and from Katherine to Garcia and Rivera established the payment structure of the murder-for-hire conspiracy. Third, the bump operation and the resulting wiretaps. That undercover operation in 2016 generated conversations that revealed the family's panic, their coordination, their consciousness of guilt. Fourth, the enhanced audio from the Dolce Vita restaurant. Technology that didn't exist in 2016 eventually made it possible to hear what Charlie and Katherine discussed the day after the bump, and those words helped convict Charlie. Fifth, the attempted flight to Vietnam. Donna's arrest at the airport with a one-way ticket to a country with no extradition treaty was powerful evidence of guilt. And finally, the testimony from family members. Wendy and Rob taking the stand, providing insight into family dynamics and conversations, helped paint the complete picture of how this conspiracy formed and operated. Charlie Adelson is in prison for life. Donna Adelson has been convicted and awaits sentencing. Katherine Magbanua, Sigfrido Garcia, and Luis Rivera are all behind bars. 5 people convicted in connection with Dan Markel's murder. But one person remains uncharged, Wendi Adelson. Legal experts are divided on whether Wendy will ever face prosecution. Some argue the evidence against her is circumstantial, that proving she knew about or participated in the murder plot would be nearly impossible. Others point to testimony suggesting she had knowledge of her family's actions, to her behavior in the days after the murder, to the convenient timing of her move to South Florida just days after Dan died. In the next and final episode, we're going to examine Donna Adelson's trial in complete detail. We'll hear from witnesses who testified against her. We'll analyze the evidence that convinced a jury to convict a grandmother of orchestrating murder. We'll explore what her conviction means for the possibility of Wendy being charged. And we'll discuss the legacy of this case, what it reveals about family loyalty, about the lengths some people will go to get what they want, and about the patient, methodical work of investigators who spent over a decade bringing everyone involved to justice. This is Dark Trail Files. If you want to see how this entire conspiracy finally culminated in the Matriarch's conviction, if you want to understand the evidence that sealed Donna's fate, and if you want to know whether Wendi Adelson will ever face charges, then make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. The final episode is going to bring this entire story to its conclusion, and you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.